And let me... So, who have we got? All right. Hi, Han. Hi, Jerome. Good to see the chat's already active.
Yep. Good to see.
All right. Oh, someone's already got their hand up. Maybe just
Testing it.
Clicking the buttons. Yeah, so we'll announce this at the top when we start, but any participants, if you want to use the chat function, we do have a chat option in here, as well as if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please put them in the Q&A tab. The Q&A is quite good, probably better than actually using the chat for actual questions, because participants can upvote. So, if you see someone put a question up that you would really like to have answered, the more people that upvote it, we're going to get more visibility on it, and we can address that pretty quickly, which is good. So please, please do that if you can. All right, a couple of minutes.
Yeah, 3 more minutes left.
Good to see you've got your Ekahau hat going there, Amin.
Thank you.
It's actually hard to see, but I do have team colors on. I've got my, if you can see that, I've got my Ekahau hoodie on.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I might have to hunt around for an Ekahau hat before we actually start. I don't think we can really truly start unless I'm wearing an Ekahau hat.
Mate, this is a new one. This is one that just came out of the wash. Don't put your Ekahau hats in the wash, everybody.
Yeah, that heat map stripe is looking a little bit sad.
Yeah.
All right, let's have a look. I'm just looking at the survey that we're going to show as a part of the demo, and it's like, let me see if I can spot the problems. And it doesn't matter what visualization I bring up, there's problems on every single one. Yeah, this will be a good one. All right, almost there. Well, welcome everyone. There's been a big influx coming in, so we'll kick off in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, there's been a few more that have jumped on, Grant, which is good.
Yeah. All right. We can probably, I think we should kick things off. What do you think?
Let's go for it.
All right. Let me get my screen back here. Minimize this. All right. Well, appreciate everyone for attending today's webinar. So, you know, we want to be conscious of everyone's time here. So, you know, we're going to kick things off right away. Just a couple of housekeeping items. So we are using Zoom as a presentation mechanism here. So, you know, if you want to, you can use the chat. The chat is open for everyone to, you know, to sort of go back and forth. So chat amongst yourselves. If you do have any questions for any of the people on today's webinar, please use the Q&A tab. And the Q&A tab's ideal because using that, you can upvote someone else's question. So if you see a really good question, or if it was a question that you were looking to also ask, you can upvote that. We will get more visibility on that, and then we can respond to that. We'll probably leave the questions toward the end of the webinar, but ideally, you know, if you can use that, that would be amazing. We will keep an eye on the Q&A and the chat thread though. So if there is anything topical that comes up through a couple of the slides today, you know, we will aim to address those. But the focus on today is going to be around the Ekahau Sidekick. So, you know, whether you're an existing customer and maybe you're using the USB adapters, maybe you've already got a Sidekick. We've got a few tricks up our sleeve now with the launch of Ekahau Connect last month that we just sort of want to focus on and talk about, and how that sort of benefits the Sidekick. So just on the agenda, we're going to do a bit of an APAC update. So, you know, what we're actually up to in the next coming months, what we've been up to. And then we're going to focus on the feature set of the Sidekick, look at the differences. And I did a survey last week at an event, and just going to give you guys a look at why we were able to actually, pinpoint an issue and resolve it using the Sidekick. So sort of a real life example that we weren't intending to do. You know, we were at an event to demonstrate the product, but it actually, it's, you know, nice real life scenario there. So on today's webinar, I've got with me, so obviously myself, Amin Kroll, who is our APAC channel manager for ANZ, and I've also got Mark McSherry, who is the director of IPTEL. So I think that sounds like you, Mark, in the background there, commuting to another meeting.
Yes.
By the sounds of it.
No, I'm now at my destination. So yeah, thanks for the intro there. So I'll chip in a little more later on. I've got some information to think about how we as a user have used the Sidekick and the benefits it's given us. I think that might be useful for the audience as well. Yeah,
and so one of the reasons that I wanted to get Mark on the webinar was, IPTEL have got a very strong engineering background and an engineering team, and they've been using the Sidekick for a little while now. And so we thought, you know, outside of just Ekahau talking about the Sidekick, it's good to get a third party to come in and just sort of talk about the Sidekick and how it's benefited them and how they've also used it. So so feel free to chip in where you need to, Mark, and I'll prompt you as well if we need to feel like you could add anything to it.
Will do. Sounds good.
So, I mean, I know you're on the call as well. Do you want to do this next slide? Give everyone a bit of an update.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thanks, Grant. So, just very quickly, as Grant said, so I run the channel business for Australia, New Zealand, and the region. Yeah. So, if I haven't met with you already, very much looking forward to doing so. So, look, we've got a very busy schedule. So, this looks like essentially what's coming up in the next 3 months or 3 or 4 months. we've got more activities that we do have planned further on through the year. Just haven't really communicated those at the moment. But Connect Tech Asia happening in Singapore, 18th, 20th of June. We've got Big Dogs in Thailand, July 30th to August the 2nd. TechX, run by our friend the Digger Data, run throughout August. So first week in Perth, we'll be in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. And also Ingram Micro 1, which is a big Ingram Micro regional event happening in Singapore, 5th to the 7th of August. So we'll be joining there as well. And some further events happening sort of later on through the year as well. And the ECSE design courses, pretty full in terms of activities. Hong Kong, 9th to 12th of July. Mumbai, 6th to the 9th of August. Auckland, New Zealand, 12th to the 15th of August. Sydney, 20th to 23rd of August. Tokyo, 3rd to the 6th of September. Melbourne, 10th to the 13th of September. And another one, 7th to the 5th of December as well. So look, if you're interested in joining, reach out to us, reach out to your local disty, and be sure to lock in a seat and to do that training as well. And the ECSA Advanced Course. Now, actually, Grant, I'm going to throw this back to you to talk a bit more about the Advanced Course. That's a bit of a new announcement.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, I totally forgot. We can't really start the webinar without without my Ekahau hat. So let's put this guy on and really kick things off. Yeah. So look, I've just put into the chat, we've got a URL to register interest. We are going to have the first and only ECSE Advanced for the APAC region. It's going to be run out of Melbourne, it looks like at this stage. So we're just trying to get interest. It is it is the same class size as ECSE Design, but it is 3 days. It is a lot more a lot more complex than ECSE Design, and so hence we've got a prerequisite that you have to have already sat and completed the ECSE Design course. So even for existing ECSE students, you do need to go through. There's a transition course through Ekahau University. So I don't have the link with me, but if you it should be on our website. But please go through that, get updated to ECSE Design. There's a quick series of videos, and then there's an online exam. You can then use the ECSE Design logo, and then you can apply to attend the ECSE Advanced. So we are hoping to roll more of those out, next year into the rest of APAC. I did have a question about Kuala Lumpur. And having an ECSE there. The more interest that we get from different regions in APAC, please let us know. That way we know that there's an audience there, and we can run an ECSE. But I think at this stage, Hong Kong is probably the next best bet, or Mumbai for those type of regions. We did just have one in Singapore last month as well, so we do have them fairly regularly. But this is the current schedule.
Cool.
Okay, so I want to frame the discussion around the Sidekick, and it's hard to frame that without talking about a lot of the components that sort of that hang off the Sidekick, so to speak. So what we've released last month was Ekahau Connect. We've got the Ekahau Pro software, which you can do design work with, but you can do validation, so on-site validation work with. And that's generally, best paired with a Sidekick. And we've got a couple of slides coming up that we can talk to about that. Obviously, we've got the Ekahau Sidekick, which we've had a lot of community, uptake and feedback and interest in. So, it's been really very successful for us as a result of, it being just this, this super precise all-in-one, survey diagnostic device. And now with the Sidekick, we can utilize that with the iPad. So we've released a site survey application for the iPad. It's not necessarily using the internal iPad adapter for the survey component. We are still surveying off the internals from the Sidekick. And so we've got a couple of slides, and we'll show you what that sort of looks like shortly. And then we've also got Ekahau packet capture. So we had a lot of people asking when we initially released the Sidekick, hey, can I use those internal adapters to do packet capture functionality? And so we've brought that out to market as well. And I know we're talking about Ekahau Cloud, but we do have the capability to utilize the Sidekick's internal solid state drive to transfer files, and so to use it as a bit of an intermediary, basically the world's most expensive USB drive. But we can use that to transfer files from your laptop, your Mac OS or Windows laptop to the iPad. And I'll give an example of me using that actually last week when we get to the demo example. So look, just a primer in case anyone on here hasn't seen Ekahau Pro. We'll get to have a look at that in a little bit, but it's been our core product for a number of years now. We can use it to design Wi-Fi networks, to survey Wi-Fi networks, analyze and troubleshoot Wi-Fi networks, and run reports, on what the Wi-Fi networks look like. You can, give that report, potentially to various stakeholders in your business, or the people that are going to sign off on, on what the requirement is to either, provision and purchase a Wi-Fi network, or maybe to troubleshoot a Wi-Fi network. And with Ekahau Connect launching last month, we upgraded Ekahau to version 10, and so with that, we introduced a series, a lot of features. So a big speed upgrade was one of them. So it's actually very hard for me to go back to version 9 now. With version 10 out, it is very, very fast. We implemented interference detection, so we can identify various interferers with the tool and pinpoint where they are. We can find where the access points are with a lot greater accuracy. We talked about the cloud component. And we've also got the ability to survey and to design for 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6. Okay, so if in case anyone's not aware of what the Sidekick is, and we're talking about this device, it's sort of this all-in-one Wi-Fi site survey and diagnostic device. So it's got two internal AC wireless adapters. They're the same, enterprise grade adapters that you would find like in an access point, like an AC access point. It does have support for 802.11ax Wi-Fi site surveys. Inside, the enclosure, it's got 7 factory tested internal antennas, and we'll talk about why that's important in a little bit. With the Ekahau Connect, we now have support for the Wi-Fi packet capture. And probably one of the big things that I often talk to a lot of people about, particularly if they've got an engineering team and they go and do a lot of on-site work, is it does cut down on the actual survey time quite considerably. You basically plug it in and away you go. Like, even if I want to swap between my MacBook and my iPad, I don't have to disconnect the device or turn it off and turn it back on when I plug it into the different device. I literally just unplug it while it's turned on, plug it into the iPad. You wait 30 seconds, it's gonna detect the iPad, and basically I'm ready to survey, away I go. So Mark, I don't know, do you want to sort of add anything about, like, maybe the time savings, or, just, your engineering guys and what they've sort of found with using the Sidekick, maybe compared to a more traditional, survey adapter?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ron. The Sidekick's been pretty good on a number of levels, actually. The fact it's got some inbuilt batteries has made a big difference to the amount of survey time the guys can do in one go without having to recharge in between. So that's probably maybe the single biggest benefit, coupled with quicker surveys as well on the unit. It's also been easier to use. We have had instances in the past of people are looking down at their tablet and they're surveying, and they've walked into objects and they've broken the adapters. So having the Sidekick on the hip has been a bit of a bonus as well, I think. Probably the final thing, as well, as the adapters are more consistent and more accurate. So over the years, we've noticed that when you buy standard adapters, there is actually a differential between the accuracy on some of those levels of those adapters, and the Sidekick's definitely a much more accurate platform to that survey with. So we can have multiple surveys done by different people and be able to accurately compare those results. So all in all, it's definitely been a good investment, I think. So yeah, I'll hand back over.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah, and look, even I remember the days of the old PCM CIA adapters, and then we went to the USB adapters, and I remember having issues with customers that they've walked through a door and they've snapped the adapter, or they've broken the spectrum analyzer, and that the hardware cost on those is quite high. The Sidekick is more of a ruggedized device. It's not IP rated, but it can take quite a few knocks and bumps without skipping a beat, which is quite nice. So I guess just from a comparative perspective, when we compare it, and full clarity, Ekahau, we still do sell the USB Wi-Fi adapters, but with the Sidekick, there's numerous advantages, which we've sort of listed there. I'm not going to spend too much time sort of delving into those, but what I really sort of want to focus on is the accuracy, and Mark, you sort of touched on that, which is great. And that's something that we've seen quite consistently is, you've got this consistent device, very high fidelity. So, it is able to capture a fairly, a reliable and consistent signal, especially when compared to other Sidekicks. And that's really helping us when we're able to take the Sidekick and plug it into an iPad, where, we're not necessarily accessing the network stack on the iPad. We're still using the Sidekick. And when I show the example, we'll actually see that the survey was captured via the iPad, but with the Sidekick, and the survey component, the contents there, they look identical to what you would gather on a traditional laptop environment. And so when we talk about the signal variance, and this is actually sort of come out of our R&D department in Helsinki, where they were doing a lot of testing with what these USB adapters can do with their signal variance. And if we think about those 7 internal antennas that we've got on the Sidekick, that means that we can orientate it in different ways, and we can move around an environment. And the actual the dB variance across those different orientations is fairly minimal. And so particularly if you have multiple engineers with multiple Sidekicks, or an engineer has done a capture with Ekahau Site Survey, and they've used it with a Sidekick, that the results can be quite consistent and guaranteed. With the USB adapters, they've got a much smaller internal antenna. Usually it's just a single antenna. And depending on the laptop, some laptops, they've got the orientation for the USB adapter is going to be, vertical or horizontal with a USB hub, depending on what you want to do. And if it is vertical, usually there's going to be some sort of a tilt on your laptop screen, and that's going to vary depending on the engineer. So it's just sort of walking around with your laptop doing that survey, you are going to end up with with a bit of a difference in received signal and sort of what you're actually capturing on site. And what that sort of comes down to is we've got an example here of a survey, one using the Sidekick, the other one using a USB adapter, and we've sort of oversubscribed the network. And so what that sort of comes down to is as an oversubscribed network is we're probably going to end up with with a lot more Wi-Fi issues. Co-channel interference is probably or adjacent channel interference is probably something that's that's the number one sort of issue there. Sticky client, roaming issues, things like that. That's not only going to look bad for for the person that specced the Wi-Fi network. It also looks bad for the vendor. When it's not necessarily always the case. It's not always that's the problem issue. It's just that we haven't had an accurate survey to go on in the first place. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything there, Mark.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The accuracy is definitely a key factor here. You can definitely get 3, 4, 5 dB difference between commercial adapters, which is quite significant. A doubling of power once or twice. So the error level I can actually leave you with is quite high. So having a Sidekick to give us an accurate data measurement and know exactly what we're doing with has been really useful. So yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah,
absolutely. And so we've got just a, this was a couple of surveys that we did take with the iPad. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'm sure everyone sort of wants to get to the, get to the demo part. The one thing that I would say is I get a lot of people asking, what sort of iPad should I use? I've got the 11-inch iPad Pro. The main reason I got that was the RAM. It's got like 4 gig of RAM. So the current iPad Airs, the newest ones, they've got 3 gig of RAM. So really, think about, and this is similar with Ekahau Pro, is what size, sites are you going to be surveying? If you're going to be surveying very, very large sites, absolutely, get an iPad that's got a lot of RAM. The more RAM, the better. But it will work on any iPad that currently runs iOS 12. So in that case, you're pretty well covered, for quite a few years. And I mean, we've got to get you with a Sidekick and an iPad out into like an environment like that, right?
Yeah.
All right. And so the other thing was the packet capture. So this is sort of a feature that is exclusive with Ekahau Cloud and with Ekahau Connect. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I did just want to sort of talk about the ability to capture those those 802.11 ABG and an AC frames. We've got the maximum supported channel width is 80 megahertz, and up to 3 spatial streams. So basically, what the internal adapters are capable of. The nice thing with the packet capture is that it does output in a PCAP file format, and so the nice thing there is you can bring it into like Wireshark or or OmniPeak, whatever your packet capture tool of choice is, and it's literally as easy as let's close down Ekahau Pro, let's open up Ekahau Capture, select the channels, and then hit capture. We've tried to make it very, very straightforward. Keep in mind we are not doing any packet analysis in Ekahau Capture. We are just capturing the packets as an over-the-air passive capture.
Grant, can I just make a quick question? So there are a lot of questions that have been thrown out. Keep them coming through. We are trying to keep the presentation tight. So if we don't get a chance to answer all of them, we will definitely follow up at the end.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I have been keeping an eye on the Q&A bubble sort of clicking over, which is great. So, we'll come back to those when we can, or, we'll reach out after today. And really, the main thing that I just sort of wanted to talk about here, yes, we've got cloud, so you can share projects over the cloud, but we do also have the capability to push projects using the internal SSD on the Sidekick, and that's actually what I had to do at this event last week. The Wi-Fi, the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, was so bad that I literally could not get my hotspot working. There was no event. Wireless network for me to use, and my literally the tethering on my phone, I literally could not get an upload happening because there was so much channel contention, and you'll see in a little bit. So I pushed the project to the internal SSD on the Sidekick, plugged it into my iPad, downloaded it, and started surveying. So that was actually a really nice function. And Mark, you've probably also seen, some of your engineers have probably gone to sites. I know I've been to a lot of sites, and we may not have internet connectivity on the network SSID. And so, being able to bypass that and just use the internal solid state on the Sidekick's a nice little bonus to have there.
Yeah, it's worth a quick note. I think there are a number of sites we're starting to go into now where we're seeing the 2.4 gig is actually so bad the customer can't use 2.4 gig. So, having the Sidekick and the other tools here to be able to actually diagnose that as the root cause of the problem. And then be able to move them towards a 5G channel plan is definitely a bonus. So yeah, that's definitely something that's occurring more. Yeah.
All right, but let's we probably didn't need to bring that slide up, but let's get into the demo. So let me minimize this. All right, we should be able to see my screen here. Okay, so the event that we were at last week was actually called Wireless Japan, and I was there with Anthony earlier. Let me just remove the access points here. So this survey was actually captured using the iPad, and so you can see there. I mean, differences. There wasn't a whole lot. You know, there was, but, you know, at least from a survey perspective, you know, we've got all of our access points down the side here. We picked up 508 access points in this area, just to give you a bit of an idea. So, you know, it was a fairly large area, but that was quite a number of APs, you know, easily probably the biggest that I've seen at an event. You know, having the Sidekick, it was nice to be able to sort of, you know, walk around to different, you know, to different areas and just sort of take photos on the iPad using the iPad optics. You know, we've got some other bits and pieces here. But one of the things that we picked up was, and I'm just going to bring up the survey inspection tool here. We should be able to pick it up here. So let's bring this up. So this is the data that we picked up, you know, from the Sidekick, pulled it back over to the Ekahau Pro. Is, you know, and just to give you an idea, this is where our stand was. This was just how bad the 2.4 network was. You know, so we had a lot of radios on the 2.4 band. If we go over to, you know, the utilization was already quite high. There was a lot of IoT in the area. And if we jump over to the 5 gig band, a lot of 80 megahertz access points, which is a great channel design, right, Mark? You know, lots of APs all on channel, you know, channel 36 at 80 megahertz.
Certainly makes life interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah. So one thing that we noticed was there was this non-Wi-Fi interferer on channel 132. And you can actually see here, as we sort of scroll through the survey, you know, there's ebbing and flowing, but it was constantly causing problems. And we could see those access points actually utilizing, you know, this part of the 5 gig airspace. And so we're sort of like, well, you know, what is the, you know, what could be causing this sort of problem? And particularly with these type of environments, they're very big, they're very wide open areas. So it could have been anywhere. But what we did is we just bring this up here, is you can see on the left-hand panel, we've got the spectrum waterfall. You can actually see the interferer on channel 132. It's there constantly, right? And then you can suddenly see where it spikes and where it's most intense. So what I was able to do is we basically picked that up, that it was coming from this area here. Let me just zoom in here. So we could see the area that it was coming from. And so what we did is we identified the problem. So we went around and we had a look at these different you know, booths. You know, it wasn't at booth 1, 2, 3, 5, but booth 1, 333. There was something definitely going on here. And so what I did is I did 3 30-second stop and go surveys, and you can see here just the intensity from that interferer. So quite a lot going on. And so we actually found the problem. Let me bring this up here. And so this is what the problem was. It was actually a 5 gig video transmitter. You can see here it was operating. It was about, you know, it was like a $2,000 video camera, a video transmitter, sorry. And what I noticed was that it actually had some channels that it could use. And so, you know, with a bit of a language barrier, the guys at the booth actually thought that we were like the spectrum police, because we came over and we were showing them this, you know, the Sidekick, and we were showing them this spectrum spike in real time. And I think they were starting to get a little bit worried that we were going to shut their booth down or something like that. But we communicated to them and we asked them, hey, can you change the channel? So what they did, they changed the channel. And so this is where the second capture came from. And so when they move the channel, you can see immediately an access point starts broadcasting on channel 132, and they moved it to channel 140. You know, we did another 30-second capture, so the same kind of deal. And so then we said, well, okay, well, what happens if you move it onto the next channel? And they did, and the interferer was gone completely. So it was actually pushed right off the 5 gig band. You know, so effectively an example of, you know, being able to utilize, you know, Ekahau Pro. So the project creation happened in Ekahau Pro. I push the project using the Sidekick and the internal solid state. So you can see up here, if I select that, I've got a couple of options here. So this is my project. I saved it to the internal solid state on the Sidekick. I then plugged it into the iPad, did the survey, and then as like the post analysis component, we picked up a spectrum interferer, identified it, and basically asked them to shift it onto a next channel, shifted onto the channel after that, pushed it completely off the spectrum, and as a result, we had an access point suddenly broadcasting on the channel that it was causing problems with. So a pretty cool example of, we don't go to these events to fix problems, but it was something that we could see was constantly causing problems. And just to give you an example, this is where the booth was. So it was about here. Our booth was over here. So it was almost 50 meters away, and we could constantly see this device was actually causing spectrum issues. There might actually be a picture from the booth. Let's see if they've got it. Wrong band, but that was our booth there anyway. But yeah, so a real life example of being able to sort of troubleshoot those type of issues. So what we might just do really quickly, I mean, we're 30 minutes in. I do want to keep this pretty tight. We'll just do a quick rundown of what we're actually looking at when with the Sidekick running, and then we can sort of open up some questions. But we sort of want to finish this in about 15 minutes. We don't want to chew up anyone's time as well. Look, I don't know, Mark, if you had anything else to sort of add to our little troubleshooting example that I gave just before. I mean, it's probably what your engineering team do, almost day in, day out, right? Is sort of find these problems and, use your tool sets to mitigate or fix them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, debugging Wi-Fi is definitely not an easy thing. RF is obviously one of the most major components of Wi-Fi to start with. So having relevant tools to be able to visualize what's actually going on is pretty useful. I mean, often we're also doing debugs on the back-end controller and stuff, but you've got to be able to work with both the RF and the controller configuration. So debugs on the controller and looking at the RF as well, both incredibly useful. AirSniffs, of course, are also the third component of that. So when we get a client that is truly different to diagnose, an AirSniff is the final stage, really, of trying to diagnose that. So we've kind of got all those tools here, really. So, yeah.
No, that's right. All right, cool. Look, that's really good sort of really good input there. I mean, just so everyone's aware of what we are actually looking at. I mean, I'm using a pair of AirPods at the moment, and what we're looking at is basically the real-time scan from my Sidekick. I've got that plugged in. You can see that up on the top right-hand corner here. It's got my Sidekick, so I've got a bit of a high-level overview of the wireless environment around me, and you can see these little blips on the radar, so to speak. They've been happening for a period of time, and that's basically my Bluetooth. You can actually see the little 5 megahertz channel frequency hopping that it's doing, which is pretty common with Bluetooth radio. And then I've also got a TP-Link access point on channel 11. So there's obviously some sort of a communication happening there, because we can see that that's periodically it's been busy over a period of time. So for about the last 20 minutes here. If we jump over to the 5 gig band, similar story, but not as much sort of going on here. One example that I will give is, let me just, and we sort of talked about being able to pick up like sort of data transmission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to associate my phone to the 5 gig band here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a quick speed test, and just to give an idea on being able to pick up those those wireless transmissions. So you can actually see here the intensity as my phone does its speed test here. I'm just going to drop down, and it's going to do a pretty pretty embarrassing upload. You know, it was a 108 meg download, but only like a 4 meg upload. Unfortunately, no NBN for me at this stage. And then the other thing that we can do here is, you know, we talked about interference detection within the software for version 10. So this wireless camera, I'm just going to switch this guy on, and you'll actually see my audio may cut out, but you'll actually see the spectrum interference it causes. So I won't leave that on for too long, but you can see, you know, the software was able to pick that up, identify the interferer. If we go down to our timeline here, we can actually hover the mouse over and we can see that, okay, well, yes, there was a video camera. So, you know, with Ekahau, we actually have a new visualization in the software that will actually, you know, it will color the floor plan red where the interferers are. It will also identify what band they are happening on. So just a bit of a quick rundown on what we're looking at in regard to the, you know, to the spectrum interface, and, you know, and what we can sort of get with something like an Ekahau Sidekick. So what we might do, we've sort of maybe got like 10 minutes. You can see there my Sidekick picking up like some sort of a wireless intercom. We might bring it over to the questions. I mean, I know there's been some discussion here. Roy, thanks for joining. I'm just sort of going through.
Yeah, so one that's come up a couple of times is, can a single Sidekick be used with 2 laptops? Not at the same time, but one at a time. So, i.e. one Windows and the other Mac.
So I would answer that by saying that the license is really per user. So the intention would be that, yes, if the user had a Windows and a Mac laptop, then, you know, that they wouldn't be able to be used concurrently, but they could plug a Sidekick in and use it, you know, with a secondary laptop, provided it's the same user. So it's a one license to one user licensing structure.
Cool. Another question was around LTE technologies and frequencies. So do we support that, or do we have any plans to support LTE?
I probably can't comment on development roadmaps or anything like that. What I would say is that, you know, like our tool at the moment, its core focus is Wi-Fi, so 2.4 and 5 gigahertz wireless. Yeah, so, you know, that's where the core focus points are.
Excellent. Then there was a question around GPS, leveraging GPS to do a survey.
Mm-hmm. GPS, yeah. So GPS is currently supported only in the Windows environment because we use a GPS gate tool for that to work as a supplicant between Ekahau Pro and your GPS device. We do have a list of GPS devices that are supported on our website, but I've interfaced like an Android phone via Bluetooth as a GPS reference point. You know, simply just for testing, not for an actual GPS survey. You know, I'd suggest getting something like, you know, like a Garmin type of device that's going to give you some good accuracy. But we do have a number of customers that do use GPS surveys. Mark, I'm not sure, have you got any comments to add on GPS surveys? I'm not sure if your guys have done anything like that.
No, I don't think we really have. Most of the stuff we do really is indoors. So, yeah, I wouldn't have much to add on the GPS one.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is it is fairly automated, you know, so you just have to provide 3 GPS reference points on your map. So you maybe use, you know, Google Maps to get, you know, to get the area that you want to survey. And then once you've got those GPS reference points in, and your GPS device is providing GPS data to Ekahau, you know, you can basically drive around in a golf buggy or maybe like a vehicle. But, you know, just keep in mind, GPS is for outdoor only. You're not going to get any GPS reads indoors.
Oh. Yeah, look, Grant, look, there are a bunch of other questions here as well, but I think we can answer these in sort of more detail after we've finished the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, I'm just having a quick look down through the questions here. Some of them, it would probably be better to be addressed offline because there's some contact and bits and pieces. Let me just read the last couple, and then we might sort of finish it up there. Let me just minimize this. We can. But I mean, if anyone does need to contact anyone, maybe we just bring up this slide again. So Mark, I appreciate you being on. Obviously, Amin has got his contact details there, and myself if it's more of the technical component.
Very good. That's great.
Yeah, let me just. So sorry, I'm just reading these. There's a few more questions about GPS. There is a wiki style manual that does detail how to do the GPS component. Quite comprehensively. So please take a look at that. If you just search for GPS, it will bring up a series of entries on how to do it. It's practically step by step. People are asking about the license being perpetual or yearly. So the Ekahau Pro license is perpetual, but if you maintain your subscription to Ekahau Connect, then you do get updates for the product. And we do release several updates every throughout the year. So I think every 3 months or thereabouts we release an update. So whether it's a minor update with added predictive access points. Or some minor bug fixes, or whether it's a mid update, maybe like a quarterly update that might include some nice added features, and then with the yearly update, like we updated to version 10 just last month. That was probably a pretty big update, with a big speed boost, UI overhaul, AX support, things like that. And then just one other question, new user, it's not clear if and how you can combine survey and planning functionality. So the tool includes both. So Ekahau Pro, you've got the capability to do planning, and you can also do the survey component. So, but we might leave it at that. Anyone that does have a pending question, we will reach out individually. Mark, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else in there at the end.
Only that we can quote for whatever installs people have got. So the email address is on the slide there anyway, so they can obviously write our sales email address if anyone wants to either upgrade their existing contracts, add to Connect, or buy a Sidekick to add to their Pro license.
Yeah, Mark is so IPTEL and Mark, you guys are an Ekahau partner as well. So yeah, please speak to them. I mean, did you want to add anything else in there?
No, I think that's good. Again, if we'll follow up with these questions here. If there's any commercial questions, I'll definitely follow up with some of the commercial questions. Grant, you'll follow up on the technical questions. But this has been great.
All right, excellent. Look, thanks everyone for your time. We won't keep you any longer, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next webinar.
Thanks everybody. Thanks again.
All right, bye.
Thanks.